This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, good morning, everybody. We'll call this meeting to order. Welcome to the Iowa 911 Communications Council meeting for October 13, 2022. If we could please give a rundown of who's on the line. Everybody's on the line here.
Chris Jasper.
I'm here.
Lauren Parkin.
Here.
Thank you. George Griffith.
Oh, George Griffith is here. I'm sorry. So much static, it's hard to hear the name.
Okay, thank you. Mike Bryant. Mike, I saw you out there. I'm sure you're here. Mark Murphy.
Here.
Tracy Bearden.
Here.
Richard Pierce.
Here.
Rob Dennert.
On the phone.
Okay. Jack D'Angelo.
Here.
All right. Taylor People.
Here.
Okay. Four.
All right, thank you. Could I please get a motion to approve today's agenda? Here's the motion.
Murphy second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Again, same sign. The motion carries. And likewise, got to get a motion to approve the September 8th, 2022 minutes. Pierce will make the motion. Thank you. For a second.
Jasper will second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Again, same sign. Motion carries. Blake, do you have a report for us?
I do. Get started. I added some fancy graphics to my cover slide. I think after however many, 7 years, I finally got a little creative, so enjoy that. I wanted to cover first, I sent out this email a couple weeks ago, but I kind of wanted to make sure to formally cover it here and see if there's any questions. We did, as part of the department's 5-year rule review, we did submit some proposed changes to Chapter 10, which is the admin rule governing 911. A good handful of what we did stems from the strategic plan work group. So it's stuff that we talked about in that work group. A lot of it was kind of updating terminology within the definitions, removing some stuff that's a little bit antiquated, adding some stuff that we felt needed added. One, I would say, big caveat, and as a reminder, we can only do so much within the rule itself. We can't make new legislation. We can't do anything like that. That is all part of 34A and the normal legislative process. So it's kind of just updating what was already on the books for Chapter 10, making it a little bit more relevant and still staying within the confines of 34A itself. So again, I don't know that I need to go over it line by line. I sent it out, but I would take any questions. We did have the hearing in front of the Admin Rules Committee earlier this week as well. There was no questions from them, no questions from the public. We did receive 2 public comments that kind of go to making the terminology even more technology neutral, making the definitions even more technology neutral. So we'll take that under consideration. These are not final adopted rules at this point. But any questions from anyone on the line or in the room? Okay, hearing none, if you did want to ask those offline, I'd certainly take those questions in that sense as well. We've had a number of training sessions with Comtech. They are rolling out an update to their ALI database. Couple new user tools once you get into the system, but also having some security upgrades, 2-factor authentication, things like that. So all of those training sessions have been recorded. They're available on our shared online collaborative space. So if you need access or haven't been able to attend those training sessions, if you send either Allie or I or the 911 inbox a note, we'll get you added so you can look at those recorded training sessions. Last month, we held the second version of the PSAP leadership training. We held it earlier in the year, and then again in September, we had 26 people participate. Again, we'll look to hold that again, probably late winter, early spring, kind of looking at a cadence of about twice a year. So we also continue to kind of tweak that training as we learn and go, adding things, subtracting things that might be less relevant as time goes on. So it is kind of a moving, constantly developing training course. So certainly don't need to take it every single time we offer it, but again, just kind of, we're trying to keep it as relevant as possible. Just a reminder that annual forms are due January 1st. Still plenty of time, just kind of poking everyone to remember those. We haven't received too many yet, but again, you have a number of weeks left to go before those are due. Without trying to promote any one service or device, I did want to bring to your attention, for your telecommunicator purposes, a couple features that were rolled out, first by Apple and second by T-Mobile using Starlink. Apple has a new feature where if you are outside of cell service, so if you're thinking like a remote area, maybe a national park, state park, something like that, you can still use and access 911. It ends up being a chat dialogue with the telecommunicator. I actually am familiar with the person at Apple that helped roll that out, so we were able to do some testing in a handful of PSAPs in Iowa. And there's a little bit of a delay, just because it takes a while to get the satellite back, but it worked out really well, so you're still able to access emergency assistance in those remote areas. I'm a little bit less familiar with the T-Mobile version, but I assume it's fairly similar. It's basically, again, if you're out of cell phone range, normal, where you can make a voice call, it uses satellite technology to be able to reach 911 and emergency services. So it's something to kind of just pay attention to, be aware of, see what, the user experience is from the telecommunicator perspective, so you're familiar with it if and when you receive that type of call. At the end of September, the FCC, this has been kind of a long time coming, it's been a bit of a process, but they have opened up their network outage reporting system and disaster reporting tools to agencies that qualify. So Homeland Security Emergency Management is an agency that qualifies. So we have been approved for access for those outage reporting tools. And as a reminder, we used the DERS system during the derecho in 2020 to be able to help better identify where service interruptions were throughout the state. So DERS is the disaster reporting tool. NORS is kind of the day-to-day blue sky outage reporting tool. So we'll have access to that. It is highly sensitive information. There's training that we have to go through even just to access the portal. So a little bit limited in the specificity of what we can share, but there are kind of caveats, and there are ways to be able to share that information with other jurisdictions that have kind of a need to know if there is an outage that's significantly impacting your area. So just wanted to make everyone aware that that we're working through that process to have that information kind of at our fingertips. An update from last month, we talked briefly on the Telecommunicator Training Board, just an update. That recommendation to open up training went before the ILEA Council. There was a little bit of discussion on if the council had any authority over telecommunicator training. So what was decided at that setting was that the acting ILEA director, thank you, I couldn't think of her term, director would enter into a 6-month agreement with those entities that requested the waiver to have those alternative trainings for a period of 6 months, while ILEA Council and ILEA legal counsel kind of reviews code and rule and kind of determines kind of a long-term solution for the potential for alternative training or not. So that's kind of very much still in the works and discussion going on there. Finally, and I've talked about this for a long time, but we have finally turned up interstate 911 transfers with Minnesota. So that is complete with location data, number information. So just like you're making a transfer in-state today, those border PSAPs along the border with Minnesota have been able to successfully pass 911 calls back and forth. Still a couple of little glitchy things that they're working out, but for all intents and purposes, it's up and running. And so soon, shortly, we'll be turning up South Dakota as well. It's kind of the same backbone technology that we're using. So those border PSAPs with South Dakota will be turned up shortly as well. That was a lot of information. I will pause if there's any questions. And hearing none, just a couple other things to go over. As a reminder, this year's GIS grants have been structured a little bit differently. In the past, it was kind of a twice a year criteria to meet the benchmarks. We've moved that to quarterly, which means that with the end of September, we did have kind of that line in the sand with meeting the benchmarks. And just like we've seen every year and every time we stair-step the benchmarks higher, everyone was very successful in meeting those new benchmarks. So 98 out of the 99 counties met the thresholds and received their first grant payment. As a reminder, it's the same amount, just kind of, again, divvied up a little bit differently. So $3,000 per PSAP comes out to $324,000 in grant funding for the first quarter. So again, that one county that missed the benchmarks, still perfectly eligible for the remaining $9,000 that's available. They just missed out on the first $3,000 because they didn't meet the benchmarks for the first grant, or the first quarter, I should say. There is one training application to be considered later today in the agenda. Polk County has requested $10,000 for the NENA Center Training Officer course. So you can see on the slide how much is remaining if that's approved. They've also asked for reconsideration of the 10% cost share. We put that in place. It went into effect July of 2020, kind of to slow down and I'd say spread out the amount of funding available to make sure it was available to everyone and not just everyone that applied in the first month. So that's why we put that in place. The language of the policy is on the screen. When we get around to discussing that, I'll go back to this slide so we can kind of see the language that's there and have that discussion. That ends my comments, but Lynn Warren from Zetron, are you on to talk about shared services?
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Ken.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's been another busy month for us. You can see since the last presentation, Adams, Adair, Appanoose, and Madison all have gone live with their shared services. Madison also got a Zetron PBX. Planned for next week is next month. Guthrie, Butler, Cedar Rapids, JCA, and Union County are all going live. Next slide, please. Here's the map of the state. And next slide, please. We had our newsletter come out this week. If you did not get it and would like to get on the list, send me an email at lynn.warren@zetron.com. I will get it out to you, as well as add you to further newsletters. Any questions for me? Thank you.
All right, and if there are no further questions, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. All right, we do have the training fund request from Polk County. Is there someone from Polk County that wishes to speak on this training?
Nick Brockman, are you on the line from Polk County? Are you able to talk to this? Nick, if you're talking, we can't hear you. Nick, I see you came off of mute, but we still can't hear you.
Wonder if maybe Nick could maybe call in, perhaps?
Have him call myself. He's got my number. Hey, Nick, if you can hear us, if you can call Terry McClanahan's cell, we can at least hear you that way. I do think we'd like to have some dialogue with you. You could also dial into the webinar.
Hi, this is Nick Brockman. I called in because the website's not working. Sorry about that.
No problem. We can hear you.
Okay, good.
All right. Nick, can you, first of all, you want to explain what the training is that you're looking for here?
So this is Nina's Center Training Officer program. We've got 5 that we are going to be sending through it, and we thought it would be a good opportunity for anybody else to receive this training in Iowa, to come in and if we can get this approved, to have it be free for them. There is a class limit of 25, so that does give us 20 seats in this. And it's a really good program. We have used it before, if anybody's familiar with it, to get communications training officers certified in NINA and give them the training to really improve their centers.
Okay.
This is Blake. One thing I noticed on your application, you list the minimum as 5. The policy is 10. Are you going to have any problems meeting that minimum of 10 participants?
Oh, not at all. You mean in general? No.
Correct. Like a total of 10.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, so your request is $10,000, but I understand that you're looking for a reconsideration of the 10% match policy. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And just so that everybody understands what was the position of why you think it would be a good idea in this case to overcome that 10%.
But before we, Chair, one thing I do want to make a comment. This is Tracy Bearden. If we go back to the minutes in previous councils, there was a NINA or an APCO training that a county did apply for, and the council did approve to pay for that 10% because it was a NINA APCO training. So I think that, I mean, if that's the precedent that was set, I think we need to follow that.
So that was really the point of my question was, are we looking at it because it's NINA training or because we're just wanting to not cover the 10? I was just wondering what the thought process was here.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Chair, I'm not familiar with the history on that. I appreciate Tracy's comments. And my training supervisor actually applied for this. He couldn't make it today for the meeting for personal reasons, but so I've stepped in. I apologize.
Okay. Yeah, and Tracy, you're right. When we first passed the 10% rule, there were some, I would say, like generic NINA and APCO training that we did not require the 10%. But also, within the last year or two, I think we realized that when we passed the policy and when you read it, that's not what the policy says. It was more just for the Iowa NINA and APCO conference. So you could also go back and look within the last calendar year where there's been other NINA courses or APCO courses that we did require the 10% on. So I think that there's precedent for both. Most recently, we tried to get away from, using the waiver, if you will, for other APCO and NINA courses, and really just focus that on the conferences itself. But you're correct in what you said, that's the way it started.
Okay. Well, and I can just speak to,
we would say Polk County would be okay to cover the 10% if that's, an issue.
Okay, well, just for, we have new members here who maybe don't know the history. So just for their benefit, the reason this came along, at least as I recall, was that we wanted to make sure that, first of all, the people who were participating, as well as the people who were sponsoring, did have some skin in the game. What we saw there for a while was costs were starting to get a little bit out of control, and then because nobody had any skin in the game, we actually had people signing up for classes and then not show because what did it matter? They weren't paying for it anyway. And so that was one of the issues that we had. And so it was decided then that there would be some cost share, and whether that cost share was covered by the sponsoring agency or a combination of the sponsoring agency and the participating agencies really didn't matter from our end, but at least there was some skin in the game so that people would, one, keep prices relatively affordable for the fund so we could get more out of our fund, as well as making sure that people actually showed up for classes they signed up for. So that's basically the history as I recall it.
Understandable.
Is there any way to modify the policy to the 10% would be reimbursed if and only if the entire roster showed up? Could we do something to that effect, that people that get people to the class and fill it up are reimbursed, and that 10%, and if they don't, then they might need to send a fee or something to those agencies that didn't have someone show up? So it gives them we still are incentivizing people to get there. There's accountability. And then those agencies who are sending people to training know that, hey, that 10% is going to have to be covered if you don't show up, kind of thing. I don't know.
My concern with that would be when we're approving costs, we might be at the very end of our funds, and we may not necessarily know what our bill is going to be until we see what the roster was. I would be a little concerned about how we would address that going in towards the end of the funding year. At any rate, I guess certainly as chair, I'm open to hearing motions pertaining to either one of these subjects, approving the request, and if somebody wants to make a motion to affect the policy, certainly they can do that.
One of the reasons
I have to abstain, just so I can put on the record, I have to abstain since I do work with Polk County PSAPs. I need to abstain from the vote.
Okay.
One of the reasons, this is Blake again, one of the reasons I thought this was a good time to just bring it up, as we enacted this 10% cost share, COVID was becoming a thing. It was a thing. And just looking at the last 2 years worth of what we have spent out of the fund, last year we spent $50,000. Homeland Security spent $50,000, so basically half doing the 911 children's activity books. So even if we decide to do nothing and keep the cost share in place, I think it's healthy and good to revisit it and make sure that we still do indeed want it, knowing that we only use about half of the fund on training purposes, and with COVID and staffing the way it is, again, just kind of have the conversation, make sure we are still, that's the direction we want to go.
I think that's been one of our problems as well as we really don't have a lot of history with this 10% cost share in the normal world, given that we were affected by COVID so early into the policy. I have to believe that training, I just know from my own agency that training came to a complete standstill there for a while, and I definitely see an uptick in training. So I'm hoping that these things open back up again and people are able to train in person. But I think that's one of the negatives of this is that we really haven't had a good chance to see how well it works.
This is Chris. Can I ask a question? And I don't know if Nick can answer this or what is Nina's policy that if we have 25 people who register for this course and only 22 show up, are we still paying for 25? Are we only paying for 22? What's their policy in regards to that, I guess would be my question.
So the $10,000 is for the class itself. That covers up to 25 participants. That is the minimum that they charge. That's the maximum they charge. It's just a one-time fee.
So basically, you bought the class outright. Yeah, yes. I think on the supporting documentation, it was like cost per students, but that's either old documentation or just using kind of like the template flyer for those that on the council that have it in front of them. It's really buying the course outright. The cost is the cost.
Okay, I'm correct. Thank you.
So just so that I understand this, Blake, if we were to maintain the percentage, then effectively they'd be asking for 9,000, correct? Okay. All right. Just wanted to clarify that. Okay, so back to, do we have any motions for either?
This is Jasper. I'll make a motion that we approve this and maybe look at the policy of future meeting.
So what are your motion is to approve the 90%?
No, I'll approve, my motion is to approve the full 10,000.
Okay. So we have a motion to approve the 10,000. So effectively waiving the 10% fee, our cost share, I should say. Do we have a second?
Griffith will second.
Okay. Any further discussion? I'm going to ask for a roll call vote, please. Kara, can you accommodate that?
Right, Chris Jasper?
Aye.
Lawrence Hartman? Lawrence Hartman? All right, we'll come back in. Sheriff Ryer?
I would say no.
George Griffith?
Aye.
Mike Bryant?
Aye.
Mark Murphy?
No.
Tracy Bearden is abstaining. Richard Pierce?
No.
Rob Dennert? Rob Dennert? Jack D'Angelo?
No.
Taylor Kiefel?
No.
I'm going to vote no. Lawrence Hartman?
Abstain.
And Rob Dennert?
Okay, so that motion failed. Do we have a alternative motion? Motion
for them just to cover the 10% as we typically would.
Okay, so in the room, we have a motion to approve with Polk County covering the 10%. Do I have a second to that motion?
Here's a second.
We have a second. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, I'll ask for a roll call vote on that one, please.
All right, Chris Jasper.
Aye.
Lauren Hartman.
Abstain.
Sheriff Rauner.
Yes.
George Griffith.
Yes.
Mike Bryant.
Yes.
Mark Murphy.
Marks, yes.
Tracy Bearden's going to abstain again, I imagine. Yes. Richard
That is-
Pierce.
Yes.
Rob Denner.
Yes.
Jack D'Angelo.
Yes.
Taylor Kiefel. Yes. And myself, yes.
Okay, so that motion does carry. Thank you. And I believe that concludes the training fund requests. So moving on to reports, do we have any technical advisories? Okay. Can we get an update from Iowa Statewide Interoperable Communication Systems Board from Mr. Pierce?
Yes. I have two updates for myself, and I have Scott Richardson should be online if he can provide the maintenance update. We had our SWIC interviews were held on the 10th. Conditional offer is still pending. Final decision is yet to be made in regard to that, but we plan to have something here very soon. Thank God. And also, reference the GSSD radio program that's going on right now. 1,070 radio orders have been submitted to both manufacturers in the combined things. We've had more than that would have been submitted. I think it's over 1,200 some that were submitted total, but not everything met the guidelines. So the 1,070 were the ones that actually met the guidelines and submitted. And it cost a little bit over $5 million right now. And the deadline for orders is the 21st of October. So if anybody knows of any schools out there that have yet to submit an order and they would like to, I would encourage them to get on the train. The train leaves the station on the 21st of October. Scott, are you online?
I am. Thank you, Captain Pierce. I'll update everyone on the maintenance side of the ISIX world here. Our annual HVAC and generator maintenance is nearly complete. We have about 5 sites left that should be wrapped up here in the next couple of weeks. Motorola has started the RF preventative maintenance at sites. I believe there's 6 sites completed so far. They're currently at another 2 sites this morning, and that will continue until all RF maintenance is done throughout the system on the state sites. Motorola is also, in the near future, looking to upgrade the Astro system, and that will begin next week with console upgrades, software, and possibly hardware, depending upon the age of the equipment. And they are targeting the week of December 5th for core upgrades. The ISIX-B website, the calendar widget is now operational. All other links should also be operational at this point. And please report any issues that you notice with the ISIX-B website to the ISIX NOC email address. And we do have some numbers for ISIX. We are currently standing at 30,578 radios on the ISIX system, 2,000 822 talk groups, and we had roughly 2.6 million push to talks for last month. And that concludes my update.
Okay, that would conclude everything. All right, any questions from anyone? Okay, thank you. All right, moving on, we get an update from U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Cybersecurity, and Infrastructure Security, Chris Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll come up a little bit closer to the microphone. So, good morning, board. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. On the first slide, I would like to point out that October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. CISA and the National Cybersecurity Alliance are asking you all to kind of follow the catchphrase of see yourself in cyber and think about your operations and the connections to various cybersecurity components. You don't have to look too far in the news to find cyber incidents happening almost daily across Region 7, which includes Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, and of course nationally. Public safety organizations in particular are targets of advanced persistent threats and advanced persistent actors trying to compromise systems. So October is always a good chance to push the reset button and think about how you can improve your cybersecurity posture by recognizing and reporting phishing incidents to those that can help out with that. Phishing is one of the more common attack vectors that have been noted recently. Updating your software is a big one as well. It's not uncommon to have multiple software updates over the course of a small period of time for various systems you may employ, and oftentimes those updates will plug significant security holes. Strong passwords are always encouraged. Best practices on passwords are widely available as well. And of course, enabling multi-factor authentication. That's been one of the most recent pushes, and it has been deemed to be very effective, and it has been noted to stop multiple cyber attacks that have been attempted on organizations. If you want more information on Cybersecurity Awareness Month, the website is listed on the slide as well. CISA.gov, Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And again, CISA encourages everybody to see yourself in cyber. So the next slide, kind of get into some more germane things that are of interest to states and local agencies. The state and local cybersecurity grant program, that notice of funding opportunity was released for the real time, I guess, on September 15th. It sounds like that hit the street, and then they had to make some adjustments to it, and they re-released it on the 15th of September. It does include over $1 billion over the course of 4 years, and that is geared at helping entities address cybersecurity risks. That would be a threat to information systems owned or operated by or on behalf of the state, local, or tribal or territory entities. So if you start thinking about some of your critical systems, it includes enterprise systems, it includes public safety systems, it includes the whole thing. Eligible uses for this money include developing and revising cybersecurity plans. As technology changes, so must the cybersecurity plans that come with that technology. Implementing various elements of the cybersecurity plan. Let's say there's a capital expenditure, you may be able to use some money to help assist with that expenditure. You can also use it to address immediate cyber threats, such as, if you needed more enhanced monitoring, or if you had some significant purchases that, again, that had to be addressed or purchased to address the threat, you can use it for that. And then, of course, there's other appropriate activity with a little bit of flexibility that's deemed by the CISA director, Jen Easterly. So keep an eye on this grant program. I believe the state administrating agency is your point of contact for that. But again, information is still trickling out of this grant program. So the best words of encouragement I can give to the group here today is think about what you would want to use this type of money for and how it would help your organization with respect to cybersecurity, and then coordinate closely with your FAA. So moving on to a different topic on the next slide, the NIFOG has hit the street. The National Interoperable Field Operations Guide was updated in March of 2022, and the printed copies are finally hot off the presses, and the ink has essentially dried. They are being shipped out to local agencies. In particular, the SWCS are getting 100 copies. Your emergency communications coordinators in various regions will be getting copies as well, which includes myself, so I'll hopefully have some in the next month or so. And individual orders are being considered as well. So if you have a significant event where you're going to be bringing in partners and you want to make sure they have an updated version of this NIFOG, you can make that request through CISA, and we will do what we can to try to get you some copies. In addition, any TA deliveries that are being given to states now when it comes to your COML, COMT, or INTD courses, they are giving them updated versions of this NIFOG as well. So there's multiple ways to get your hands on one. There's an electronic copy online, and the online app has been updated as well. So there's a lot of new information in this one. And again, it's a great thing to have in your go bag, depending on where you may have to go to address an event. So on the next slide, we kind of get into some more, call it rudimentary things, typical work products that come out from CISA. You see a lot.
I think it's valid.
I think it's valid. At least I'm hoping that. CISA recently released a new cybersecurity white paper, fitting that it came out in Cybersecurity Awareness Month. It's entitled 2 Things Every 911 Center Should Do to Improve Cybersecurity. 911, again, is the most direct route for the public to get emergency assistance, as we all know here. And again, we've kind of discussed previously that it is a target for criminals and even state actors to try to exploit vulnerabilities. This paper covers 2 steps that you can do to immediately improve your cyber posture. This was sent out when it was released, but if anybody has not seen it yet, please let me know and I will get you an electronic copy. So, next slide, there is also the SafeCom nationwide survey that's coming out soon. This survey is done every 5 years. It was most recently done in 2018, and the expected deployment date of the survey is 2023, and this is a nationwide effort to collect data that is actionable from public safety agencies on their communications capabilities. The questions have been developed and they're under review, and an outreach plan is also being developed. Where this comes in for Iowa in particular is your survey responses are used as the basis for national initiatives, whether it's national products such as best practices, time where the federal government would need to invest money to help investigate matters on behalf of states, and even grant programs. This feedback that's collected from that survey goes directly into that think tank that develops those work products and also figures out where grant money is necessary. So once this is released, which again, it should be released in early 2023, I would highly encourage every agency that can see the slide right now to fill this survey out. It does take around 20 to 45 minutes to fill out, depending on your situation, but they have made numerous improvements to it over the last time it was released in 2018. There's some new logic that's being applied to the questions as well, so if something does not apply to you, you should be able to select no, this doesn't apply to me, and then it will skip the next several questions that are on that topic. So it will be a time saver there. So again, keep an eye out for the SafeCom nationwide survey. It is coming out, and it is super important that everybody participates, especially rural communities. So we're getting near the end of the slide deck here on the next slide. The big thing here that I wanted to bring up to the group here is that there is a request from FEMA for feedback on the National Incident Management System Information Communications Technology functions. We're getting close to the end of that comment period. It is due October 20th, but this is the framework for incorporating information and communications and technology branches into the ICS structure. The work that's been done so far has been primarily focused around reaffirming and expanding the communications unit. We're all familiar here with COML, COMT, and INTD, but there are a couple of other positions, such as the Incident Communications Manager and OXCOM positions that are not necessarily widely used in Iowa, but they do exist. It also establishes an IT service unit that would be deployable out in the field, which includes the Information Technology Unit Leader, a unified help desk, and IT support specialist. So if you're in the middle of an event and you need IT brought to that event, these specialized positions would be now a part of that unit that would help the event carry on and function. It also establishes a cybersecurity unit that includes a cybersecurity unit leader, because the last thing you want to have happen during an event where you may be in field or in an austere environment is for your IT structure to go down because of some sort of compromise or failure. So it establishes a cybersecurity unit as well. I would encourage everybody here to take a look at this. So if you have any comments, they are due by October 20th. So next slide. I believe this is the last item I have for the group today. There is a PSAP cybersecurity webinar that is available now to the Region 7 states, which includes Iowa, Kansas, Nebraska, and Missouri. State of Kansas requested this TA several months ago, and they're hosting it for their own agencies within the state of Kansas, but they have graciously opened it up to the rest of the Region 7 states. So if you want to sit in on a couple of webinars that would cover cybersecurity for the PSAP, they're being held on October 18th at 0900 to 1100 and October 20th at 1900 to 2100. You can register online at the Kansas Training website. And if you have any questions, you can direct them to Angela Murphy, who is a part of the Kansas 911 program. That should be my report, Mr. Chair. I can go ahead and take any questions.
All right, Chris, thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Can we get an update for Chapter 34A Administrative Code Committee? Rhonda, are you on the line? Don't think Rhonda is on the line. Okay, and Rhonda would usually be the go-to for the baseline knowledge unless there's someone else from that committee that can speak on that. Okay, hearing none. Do we have any legislative issues? Do we have any information sharing by council members?
Hi, Chair. This is Tracy Bearden. I do have something. I visited with Blake about this issue. Polk County 911 Service Board is having issues making sure that we receive not only the right amount of surcharge, but that we're receiving all the surcharge that is owed to the Polk County 911 Service Board. And so we are asking for assistance from the state, because when areas are annexed, when bordership, how do they know? I sent out a letter telling the wire lines that the Polk County Emergency Management Agency is the new fiscal agent for the Polk County 911 Service Board, and that they need to be submitting the surcharge to my office. And I received $68,000 in surcharge from 2013, 2014 fiscal year all the way to the present, except they didn't pay the entire last fiscal year. So how did they know where to send it? So I'm asking if the state can assist, because if we're experiencing this issue, then I would assume that there's other service boards that are experiencing this issue. And I think that if there's a state initiative and some protocol, I think it'd be better served.
Yes, this is Blake. We have, within 34A, even under the wireline portion of the surcharge, our office does have a slight role, which is why I think we'd be willing to take this on. And I've heard from other local service boards kind of similar questions about, how wireline surcharge is remitted, with how frequently it's supposed to come in, boundaries, addresses, things like that. So when you look at 34A, the program manager is responsible for sending out notification of implementation of the surcharge, as well as any rate changes. So I think we do have a bit of a role within this topic. And, I would kind of just consider it like, tightening up and just, a letter, not that it's punitive, but just saying, this is what's in 34A, this is what you're supposed to be doing as far as how you remit surcharge, with frequency and who it goes to, and how you determine which service board it goes to. So more of an informational thing. So I think we're happy to do that if I don't know, Tracy, what Tracy's necessarily asked is, but we're happy to do that if there could be a benefit, kind of, again, tighten that up a bit on behalf of 911 service boards across the state.
Yeah, and I think there just needs to be a better understanding of, okay, this is how these wireline companies know which service board to send. This is where the information is coming, that they know that there has been land annexed and lines switched and service area switched, and knowing whether or not they go to our service plan, or are they working with GIS maps? What is it? So I think both sides would benefit, the wireline and the service boards, to have a better understanding and kind of a more direct guidance of this is how it's done. And when there's changes, this is what you do and where you go. So I appreciate that, Blake. Thanks.
Blake, are you proposing just doing the counties that have identified issues, or are you proposing a statewide?
I think I'm willing to do whatever. In my mind, it was going to be statewide and just send it to all of the telcos in the state. Just, again, more informational on this is what code says on how you're supposed to remit payment to service boards for wireless surcharge.
Sounds like a good idea. Okay. Any other information sharing by council members?
Yes, Mr. Board, this is Jack D'Angelo. I had a couple items. I'm sorry I wasn't able to get off mute previously, but a couple things here. In regard to robocalling again, we continue to combat that, obviously. The FCC is cracking down. Recent letter came out. There were 7 I guess major carriers, it looks like, that weren't complying with the FCC's standards here. Their names were Acabus, Cloud4, Global UC, Horizon Technology Group, Morse Communications, Sharon Telephone Company, which there's a Sharon Telephone Company in Iowa, but I don't believe that's the case here. I think this might be Wisconsin, and also Southwest Arkansas Telecommunications and Technology. So these companies aren't complying, and there's a lot of scamming continues to come out of these communication companies. So the FCC doesn't believe fines are doing the job here. So they're looking at, this is the last shot deal for these 7 companies as far as they're going to be disconnected from the nationwide network of communications here if they don't comply. So again, this is a tough one. We continue to work on the stir-shaken issues with the robocalls, but they continue to pop in and out, and I'm sure the PSAPs have to deal with this as well. So it's an ongoing issue here that we continue to work on. Also, the second item, I guess, Blake, I don't know if you know anything about this, but it looks like the telcos were supposed to, well, actually, I got a notice from the FCC for 911 certification test system. I've got a user manual here that's looks like it was produced April 30th, 2020. This is the first time I've run into this, but it's FCC 911 reliability certification system for 2022. Been in the system. There's like a couple, 3 major items that the telco has to fill out. I don't know if I can't figure this out if the PSAPs are involved with this as well, but the 3 major items here that I see are critical 911 circuit diversity certification, whether the end offices have circuit diversity for 911, which is obviously critical, or if you have other alternate measures, whether the telco has central office backup power, obviously stationary generators to maintain the system, and also network monitoring at aggregation points, which gets a little complex. So are you aware of this at all, Blake, and do the PSAPs fill this out as well?
It's not too often something catches me by surprise, but I have a blank look on my face. So if you could send it to me, I'd happily take a look at it. I have not heard about that.
Okay, well, it looks like it's been out for a while, but maybe the past couple of years or so, I don't know, but this is the first time I'm ever seen it, so it caught me by surprise, and we have to complete it by the end of this week. So it doesn't look like there's a lot of things that you have to do, but it's just something new to us.
Do you know where you got it from or saw it first?
Yeah, I've got it here. I can probably send something over to you. Okay.
Yeah,
all right. That's all. Yeah.
On a PSAP level, I don't think we've seen it. I don't know of anyone who's seen it.
Okay. yeah, I don't know how critical it is. It just popped up, so, just trying to work through it since it came from the FCC.
Yeah. Yeah, I would certainly take a look at it, that's for sure.
Okay, I'll send it over to you. All right, that's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other information sharing by council members? Okay, any information sharing from this room? Okay, any information sharing from anyone online or on the phone?
Mr. Chair, this is Mike Bryant. Back to the training fund that we approved. I think that training, if I remember reading it right, was in February. Can we ask that we get a report back after that as to how many people actually attended?
Hey, Mike, this is Blake. As part of the reimbursement package, we do ask for a sign-in roster. That we have to have that to process the payment. I'm happy to share that. We handle that a couple different ways. I don't know that we've done it in the past, but we certainly can. And like I said, I get that as a routine part of paying the bill as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anything else from someone online or on the phone? Okay, I don't have any unfinished business, new business, travel requests. And unless there's any other business on the floor, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Second.
So move, Murphy.
Second, Bearden.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.